Heidi's here. Hello, Heidi. All right, I'm gonna get this party started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gateway Spotlight series. I'm your host, Brooke Roberts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Study Abroad Association. Since 2009, the Study Abroad Association has assisted hundreds of universities and colleges with 100% customized faculty-led programming in over 40 countries. Now, with their New York Times featured Virtual 360, GLE, Global Learning Experiences, SAA has brought new solutions to the field and institutions in order to make global education accessible to all. Thank you so much to Study Abroad Association for sponsoring this episode. And I'm very pleased to be talking with Bryan Shuler today, a professor at Hillsborough Community College. And we're going to be discussing how the rise of virtual exchange and virtual global experiences has been impacting our field. And so to put this into a little bit of context for everyone, as we all know, in January of 2020, the concepts of COIL, virtual exchange, and remote global programs were what we would consider a nice idea or maybe a nice to have, but that many international educators thought that they'd do someday down the road, that we get to that type of experiences on our campuses and for our students. But as we all know, in March of 2020, these types of programs, these online experiences, became a critical non-negotiable for international education, not only to maintain global experiences as a viable learning opportunity for students, but for many offices and organizations, these types of programs enabled them to keep their lights on for the following 2 years. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking with Bryan about how he's using technology like GLE 360 to bring global experiences to his students at Hillsborough Community College during the pandemic, but also into what will likely be a digital future for international education. We'll discuss the best and some of the not so great strategies he's uncovered for leveraging digital tools to create global learning experiences in the classroom. Hello, Bryan. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much. And to all of you Star Wars nerds out there, may the 4th be with you.
Yes, it is May the 4th. Good call. Before we started recording, we were talking about Bryan's thoughts on the Met Gala. So if we have time at the end, we can change course and go down that direction. But for now, I would love for you to tell our audience how you first were introduced to the concept of virtual exchange, and maybe give us a little bit of context of your teaching background, what you focus on as your academic area of focus, and when did virtual exchange and digital global learning kind of come on your radar?
Thank you. I was a Fulbright scholar in Ghana, West Africa, some years ago, and that really projected me into the idea of boots on the ground. You've got to have that kind of experience. And I've always tried to share that with students, encouraging them to do the travel and bringing things from the field work right into the classroom. And I think that is really important. So I'm a cultural studies person, humanities person. And so the arts are something tangible. You can touch them, you can feel them, and people too. We need to be able to look right at people, talk to them, get a feel for who they are. And so with that in mind, starting in 2019, actually right before the pandemic, I got involved with IREX's Global Solutions Challenge. Had a really good time, and we were off to a great start. And then came spring of 2020, the second semester.
Well, just to put it in context, maybe you could tell everyone what IREX is, because they may have never heard of it.
Sure. IREX is an organization that through a lot of different funding, federal funding as well as non-American national funding, supports ideas that we can get together with other students. So basically, my students were in a competition along with students from Jordan, Iraq, and Kurdistan, where they would be given an idea. They would have to be challenged to work together as teams across the oceans and come up with a solution. And usually it had to do with sustainability. And then they competed against each other in a live competition. So it was always very exciting. And we thought we were just having a ball. And then it turned out that we had to send all our students home in the spring of 2020. And how do we keep things going? How do we keep the excitement going? And I said, well, I think we already have something exciting. And that is this solutions, this competition, and virtual get-togethers and travel, because the students were always sharing things with each other. Here's a photograph of my home. Here's a photograph of my village. Here's a photograph of a festival we just had. So there was more than just the coming together for a solution. They were coming together and sharing culture. Mm-hmm. And that made the difference. Yeah.
Well, obviously coming from a community college, which means we are kindred spirits, because I'm also at a community college. When you first learned about IREX, what was or these like sort of digital virtual programs, what was the state of study abroad or international ed at your campus pre you engaging in these virtual opportunities?
Well, we had not engaged at all in virtual study abroad. We were only strictly, traditional study abroad programs, short-term for community college students, 2 weeks.
Right.
And you could either do it through various organizations on campus or through the honors program. So it was very traditional. When things changed from traditional to this brand new, and no boundaries at all, was when Christian Ayea from SAA, Study Abroad Association, contacted me and said, Bryan, I saw you at CCID, and you were interested in taking your students abroad. Well, guess what? That's not happening, but we have something new.
Interesting.
And he said that this is a global 360.
Yeah. And just for everyone in the audience, CCID stands for Community Colleges and International Development. And if you're not familiar with the community college arena in international ed, that's kind of like the NAFSA, but for community colleges, international education. And I went to my first one. We didn't know each other yet, so we didn't meet, unfortunately, but it was a really amazing event. So anybody watching who is curious about how community colleges are doing some interesting and innovative things to reach their students and give them global experiences on campus, online, and around the world. Definitely an organization and an event to check out for the future.
I agree.
So you talked to Christian, and he said, "Hey, we have this new product,
whole new idea."
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what GLE 360 was and what made you excited about it.
Okay, well, what happened was, realizing that he couldn't take students for a while in the near future, he decided to go out to every one of the places where he had always had tours and go with the tour guide. Say to the tour guide, take me on your tour. He had a 360 camera with him, and they videotaped every single tour they had ever given previously. Then they put it into an app where you could bring it up, choose the trip you wanted to go to, choose the town, choose the subject matter, and infused in that, and this is the big thing, infused in it were maps that you could click on, info tabs you could click on, individual lectures you could click on. It was the whole package. It just wasn't another tour. This was a comprehensive presentation of a tour that you would usually go on, a study abroad. And so it was a very personal thing. You're watching it, you could click on something, now comes up another discussion. Oh, click on that building. Oh, here comes another one. Wonder where I am. Click on something. There's a big map of the city. Now let's go back. Okay, now I'm in Europe. Now I'm going to go back. Now I'm on this side of the ocean. So it was a really great opportunity. You could use it in many ways. I have projected it on a screen for all of my students to watch at the same time. I have sent them home and said, go watch it on your computer, or you can watch it on a smartphone. And then you can also get Oculus 360 glasses, VR glasses, and you can watch it there. And I swear, when you put those on, you could swear you're walking through Florence, Italy. It is
Yeah.
amazing. You look the whole way around and you can see everything going on simultaneously.
Yeah.
So
For those who aren't familiar, there are a special camera. So they didn't just get cute with their 360 name. It's actually a camera that takes a video, a 360 video all the way around. It's like a specialized way of capturing. And then when they render it later with the Oculus or with the VR glasses, you can feel like you're in that physical space, which is really, really cool. And it sounds like it's pretty interactive too, that students can click through and where their curiosities take them. That's really cool. So talk to us about the classes that you utilize this in.
A lot of
these
people
super specialized. I think a lot of times people will think like, oh, it must have been like an ancient Roman, master level class this applies to.
No, it can work in anything. This is the magic of it. See, they have it set up so that there's one for business, a business approach to everywhere we go, a scientific approach to everywhere you go, a kind of an internationalization, global cross-cultural approach. And then there's one for basic humanities. So what's your course? What do you teach? Are you in the science field? Well, then go to the ones that kind of focus on laboratories and what's going on out in the field and how we apply it to our farming. Are you in the business world? Well, then choose that approach, and they'll meet with people, business people, corporate people, government people to talk about that. Are you strictly into the arts? Well, then you click on that one and you're going through the Colosseum and you're going through, Pompeii. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to do cross-cultural, there's, a different approach to that as well. So my classes have ranged undergraduate, freshman and sophomore, everything from introduction to humanities to Asian studies and other courses that they're a little bit pretty broad, and I can apply it to anything I want. And that's why I am really excited about it. And I tell my colleagues, choose your course that you would like to enhance and go after this. And that's what makes this so versatile. It's great.
What was it? What was the reception from students when you had your first sort of module or section of your course where you said, hey, I want you to dive into this material? How did they respond?
All right. Well, our students are not completely 100% savvy, but certainly computer savvy enough to know that, okay, we'll try this. We'll see what this is like. Is this like just going on any kind of app? Well, it's not. And some of them did not have VR glasses. So we got them the plastic glasses that you slip your cell phone into and you can watch. Some of them had their own real VR glasses, and some just watched on the computer. The response was incredible. The first time we had this class, the students just really got into it, and I had to get into it as well. So what I would do is I wouldn't have it take over the course. Don't think that this takes over the course completely. I would have them look at these various sites on the weekends. And I would say, okay, when you're in study abroad, you take a class Monday through Friday. Friday, you get out and you go somewhere nearby. And then you come back Sunday night and we go back to class. This is how study abroad is done if you're spending a semester somewhere. So I thought, okay, I'm going to assign them a place to go, travel over the weekend, just like I would if I was teaching in Florence, Italy, let's say, or Venice, or Napoli. And I would say, all right, go down in this, get on the train, go down to Napoli, get off. I'll tell you the other train to get on, go over to Pompeii. I told them exactly where to get their lunch from. And then I'd say, and then I want you to take a walk through Pompeii and report back to me, get back in time for class on Monday, and we can talk a little bit about what you experienced over the weekend. So it was an adjunct, but it was an incredible adjunct because now the students are talking about the trip they took this weekend. It's like,
did they get into it like that? Did they come back and engage in the conversation in that regard?
Totally. And in fact, at the end of the semester, I said, how many of you through this virtual travel really felt that you had done a legit study abroad program? 60% of the class raised their hand.
Oh,
I said, how many of you think that this is a really incredible opportunity, that if you can't go study abroad physically, that you really thought that this was a great way to do it. The other 40% raised their hand. I had 100% response in terms of positive response. And I'll tell you another 100%. I don't know of any other class I've ever taught where 100% of my students went on a study abroad that semester for free.
Right. Okay. I thought you were, honestly, I was like, oh my God, they all studied abroad. Well, my question would be also, did it inspire those students who maybe were hesitant or even unaware of study abroad? Did you ask them about, like, are they inspired to now maybe pursue a short-term program or another study abroad in the future, or just travel?
Absolutely. 100% said that this was a way for them to feel more comfortable with the opportunity to study abroad. They felt as though if they went to those sites, and it wasn't just in Europe, we've also gone to India with this program as well, that they would feel comfortable. They had never seen it like this. They'd never experienced walking down the street before. And now, okay, we can do this. They could visualize, I can go there, I can see this. If I can do it in this city, I can do it in this city, I can do it in this country. So that was something that was just amazing to me. And another thing that I did not expect was each of the students was to make a PowerPoint of some place that we had not gone in our journeys. And they came back with the most incredible PowerPoint presentations that had pop-up maps, pop-up info, little video going on inserted into the PowerPoint. And I realized they were all using the example that they had learned through this 360 GLE as to how to present the world. And it was phenomenal. That's awesome. And I didn't expect that.
Well, your enthusiasm is very contagious, at least for me. And I'd love to know from the audience, if you have any questions or comments, please add them to the chat so we can dive into those in a few minutes. But let's get into like more of the sort of administrative side of understanding this, because it sounds like, let's assume we're all sold. Yes, this sounds like a great experience for students. My experience, can only speak for myself, is that embracing elements like this, whether it was IREX or GLE 360, or I know there was another organization we talked about previously.
Gazelle International.
Yeah, Gazelle, which does more traditional virtual exchange, I believe. Yeah. So you've interacted with all these styles of programs. And I have a feeling a lot of us probably interact with faculty who, they would hear this and go, that sounds great, but that sounds like a lot of work. How much time, let's talk about your experience. How much time did it take you to integrate GLE 360 into an existing course, for instance, just ballpark?
No more than a week.
Okay.
How much time
how much time within that, like a 40-hour week or like 5-hour setting where you just like did some research and you were good?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much time does it take to show a film in class, to plan that? You
Mm-hmm.
know what your subject matter is going to be that week or that module. You find a film that works and you play it in class. Again, I think people are so afraid that this is going to take over everything, that they've got to completely redo their syllabus. They've got to completely redo the curriculum. This is not how it works. How it works is you use it as an adjunct to what you already have planned. And the best thing to do is go through the whole app yourself and find out, wow, this lecture over here in business would be really nice in my class. Oh, this lecture over here in science would work really well with something in my class. Oh, well, look at that. We're walking down the street here, getting to know people. Okay, I'll take one from column A, one from column B, one from column C. I'll plug them in the semester. This is how you think about it. It's not the fact of, oh my God, I've got to redo my whole brain. I've got to rethink everything. That's not what it was ever designed for. It was designed to just be a integral part of your teaching. So I would sit down and go through the entire, the various visits, and I would get inspired by it and go like, I know how I could put that into a lecture. I know how I could show that in a lecture.
Well, and I think too, because I have spoken with the SAA team about this, just even talking about it at my community college. And, I think that, they're very supportive. If I had faculty who were sort of interested, but had some of those hesitations for the reasons you gave, they I believe, and I think they're here, so you guys correct me if I'm wrong, and in the chat, but I believe they were very encouraging, saying, "Hey, we'll look at your syllabus and we will pull out some examples that we think might be a good fit for what you're talking about." But then that gives the faculty a little more flexibility to go in and find a few others that they might like, and so it gets that sort of the starting material going.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what was it like getting the administrative level buy-in to investing in this? Because it is an investment in the access to the tool and to the platform as an institution. And so what was that conversation like? And what did you come up against any resistance? And what was that resistance, if you did?
I think what's important is for the fact of the faculty member to have gone through it, looked at it. And once you've done that, and once you have taken little journeys, the excitement is there. And the administration could tell when I sat down and said, this thing is the real thing. And it's going to not only help us through COVID, this isn't going away, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of travel, this kind of virtual education, it's not going away. Jump on board and enjoy the ride, because it's here to stay. And so, it's really important to walk into your administrators and say, this is one of the best ideas we've ever had. We fund getting additional films and videos in the library. We fund doing extracurricular activities. This is something that we need to fund, just like any of the videos, just like any of the books in the library, just like any other kind of a tool in our box of tools that we need for teaching. And you approach it like that and let them put on the goggles. I'm telling you, you put on an Oculus and walk down the street in India in the flower market, and you're going to have an administrator go, I want one of these for my home.
Yeah. Well, I think, from my perspective, having seen inside the GLE platform, it's obviously a one directional experience where it's like it's, asynchronous, if you will. So you can go in anytime, do this exploration.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit, because we have just a couple of minutes left. And again, please, everyone, if you have questions or commentary, please share in the chat. But I'm curious, can you talk through some of your experience with that more traditional virtual exchange where you're partnering with another classroom or students abroad? I know you mentioned the IREX experience, but with Gazelle, for instance, what did that model look like? And what specific challenges came with that model versus the more asynchronous concept of GLE 360?
Well, anytime you're working with another team, for instance, through Gazelle International, we were working with engineering students at Saclay University in Paris. There's a lot more work behind that because I had to meet with the faculty members before and during and after the semester. So I'm co-facilitating. There's a lot of preparation, a lot of work. That does not exist with GLA 360. I mean, you tell them when to do it, you tell them when not to do it. Let's talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. And so it's a much easier process, and you're taking people on a journey. So I'm looking at the two of them, and in fact, I've used both of them at the same time in the same class. So while they were working with students in Paris, they were outside of Paris taking trips to Lyon on their 360 on the weekends while they worked with students during the weekdays. And you could tell one is much easier to implement than the other, to integrate in than the other. With anything where it's literally the virtual, you have to adjust your syllabus, you have to work on the curriculum. With this, it just slides right in anywhere you want it.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, how, if we think about traditional study abroad of actual mobility, most offices, they have what we call a portfolio model. They have lots of different types of programs, durations, destinations, areas of study, et cetera. And I think we have to have that kind of same lens and looking at global digital global experiences
Yeah.
as well, that you might have the kind of low hanging fruit of like the global GLE 360 option, where it's a little more plug and play, and you can sort of slide this concept in, and then you can ladder up from there and say, okay, well, now we want opportunities for faculty to have that more direct virtual exchange. Then the competition level model maybe is like within there as well. And so I would encourage anybody watching, if you're hearing this, you're like, oh my gosh, we got all, my hair's on fire. There's a lot going on. One, obviously you don't have to do it all at once, but two, if you can think of it as like, okay, maybe the GLE 360 model is a way to introduce this concept of digital global experiences, and then inch your way forward into something that's a little more robust, like a virtual exchange, a traditional virtual exchange. Really helpful. Heidi says that SAA has live streaming. Does our guest use this to allow for dialogue with students in the classroom with overseas contacts, CEOs, etc.? Good question.
The wonderful tour guide in Italy, my students fell in love with. Mm-hmm. And we were too late in requesting a live stream with him. But I will tell you this, in the future, I'm going to be doing that, where at the end of the semester, we're going to have a live stream with the tour guide that they've been watching all along. And when I mentioned it to the students, like, maybe next time we'll do that, they were all excited. Like, oh my gosh, we get to meet him now.
It's like having a YouTube celebrity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. We've traveled with him, but we haven't met him yet, but we've traveled with him. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Francisco. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. PJ says Francisco. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting going to CCID. I felt like, and like I mentioned, it's fully focused on community college, international education. But I was so encouraged, and honestly thought that sort of mainstream international ed had a little to keep up with, because I did go to Forum, and I'll be at NAFSA later in a month or so as well. And I just thought what all these community colleges, several faculty, multiple faculty were there presenting on, they were using GLE 360, they were using IREX, they're using Gazelle, EDU Africa, I think is another one that was really heavily involved in creating these digital experiences. And I think it's really exciting, and how I think this is kind of becoming a standard part of that portfolio model for international education. I don't think it's going to go away because we're traveling again. But I'm curious, how do you see, in 10 years, what's your prediction on how global experiences are going to manifest on campuses?
I think that we're going to continue to see this growth in virtual, no question about it. We're already talking about taking students live again in 2023. But in the meantime, and after that, the virtual exchange, the virtual travel is not going to go away. In fact, right now we're in the middle of creating a global scholar certification, and this kind of virtual travel that we've been talking about and virtual exchange is going to be part of it. You will get credit for doing 360 GLE in a classroom. You'll get credit for doing IREX Sustainability Challenge. You'll get credit for doing Gazelle International CLIC program. You're going to get credit for all of that. And we're building this program right now for the future. So it's not going away. And the great thing of it is many institutions are having students do the 360 global, and they're already prepped. And then they take them on a trip over to wherever their destination is. So they're actually integrating the two together, the live and the virtual, to prepare the students, and then they go do the live. None of this is going away. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Right. And Heidi has another question. What student body is now serviced that might not do physical travel or needs motivation to take the physical leap?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of students financially, they're unable to travel, or they, at a community college, you're dealing with students of all ages. So I have a lot of students with family, a single earner, and they have kids at home, but they desire to travel. And this hits that mark. Anybody that is physically unable to do travel as much as they want to can benefit from this as well. So you have socioeconomic demographics, you have all kinds of physical situations that come up, and I think they all answer to this. On average, what is it, less than 2%? And I think you and I have talked about this, less than 2% officially students, undergraduate students, have done any kind of travel study abroad.
And by the way, that number is dramatically less for the students at the community college level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And with this, 100% of your students can go, 100%.
Right. I completely agree. I think what our responsibility is as professionals now is to make sure that we don't create a second class citizen kind of experience around this, and that we can truly look at best practices and best models for making these digital experiences just as meaningful, just as robust, just as engaging as we would go to the same level of planning and execution for an on the ground experience, and presenting them to students as two very equal and viable opportunities for them that are going to give them a great experience. I think we have to be careful of saying like, well, you can settle for a digital experience, or you can go actually abroad. And, I resonate with the community college students and those low income students and students where this just is not, it's not going to be physically possible for me to go. I don't want to be told that I have to settle. Right.
I don't think we're even discussing settling in our campus. In fact, that's why I was saying that regardless of what kind of study abroad you take, whether it's virtual, whether it's 360, whether it's interactive, or whether you go there, they all get the same level of credit in the Global Scholar certification. That says, that's putting your money where your mouth is and saying this is valuable, regardless of what the medium is.
And I think as a field, then our next step is then also counting that experience. Like, so for instance, with open doors, there aren't, at least in the last one, I don't believe, maybe they're going to change it soon and I hope they do, but they don't ask about how many students are participating in virtual or digital global experiences. And I think that might shift that 2% number quite a bit if we started actually counting the students doing these virtual experiences.
I agree, because I think they get a lot out of it. And in fact, many times they get more out of it than, if it's Tuesday, it must be Paris kind of thing that sometimes people are going on.
Well, this was a really great conversation, Bryan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We will link to Bryan's LinkedIn and his profile over at Hillsborough. Thank you so much for being here and all the work you're doing for students and bringing this to your campus.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Trust me, I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
Thank you so much to Study Abroad Association for sponsoring this episode. And we will have another episode coming up real soon. We're going to be talking about language acquisition on traditional study abroad. And is it actually possible to become fluent during a study abroad program? So we have a great researcher from Carnegie Mellon joining us for that conversation. So join us in a couple of weeks. Thank you everyone for being here. And we will see you all very soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.